Welcome back to the Gridiron Address. We got a morning episode going on this week because, well, everybody's busy. Boom guys are doing a lot of great WrestleMania stuff. They just had a great show last night. They're going to have another one tonight, so keep an eye out for that. But I was able to get my good friend and functional co-host of the program, Chris DeLuca, on this morning before he has to go to work. Chris, how are you doing this morning?
Hey man, I'm happy I was able to come on here and we're able to work this out. We got a morning edition here, and shout out to all the guys doing all the WrestleMania content. It's been really good. These guys are grinding, just going. It's like a marathon. I'm happy that we can help and kind of contribute here, and maybe give something to kick off the content for Sunday.
Exactly. They're going to have some great stuff going on. But, Chris, let's go ahead and jump right into it. We're going to be wrapping up our prospect rankings with linebackers and secondary. We're grouping corners and safeties together into one rankings because, just for time's sake, honestly, I have other stuff I need to get to today, and I didn't have time to research everything. But, Chris, we're going to kick it off with the linebackers. Who's your number 5 linebacker prospect?
I kind of bounced around here, and this was linebacker. I feel like this is kind of a not amazing linebacker class. There's some good names. We're going to get to a lot better names here when we get to the secondary. But I went with Teddy Buchanan. He's 6'2" and a 4.6 speed, and I think that's something you're looking for. You're going to see a lot more of these hybrid linebackers now in the game. You're going to see a lot more of these linebackers that can bounce between being rush stoppers and pass stoppers. So, I'm going to go with a guy like him, good hybrid, big size.
At my number 5, I have Chris Paul Jr. out of Ole Miss. The guy's got great instincts in zone coverage. He struggles a little bit against the run. He can blitz really well and he can shoot gaps, but he's undersized, 224 pounds. He can't take on blocks directly very well. He can over pursue, and his length isn't great, which can make it harder to disengage from blocks. But the guy's got a lot of special teams experience as well, good route recognition. So he will get early playing time in special teams and obvious passing situations, but he could definitely develop into something more. I mean, the instincts he has in coverage are a great starting place, but he is very undersized and may not hold up well against the run, which is a main concern. But Chris, who is your number 4?
This one, another one was bouncing around between, but I went with the guy to UCLA with Carson Schlesinger. 6'2", 240, just a great IQ, and he can kind of balance that athleticism. UCLA, kind of a weird situation football wise, but again, this linebacker class I think is kind of very top heavy with the top 2.
It definitely is, without a doubt. At my number 4, I have Danny Stutzman out of Oklahoma. He's really great against the run. This guy he's like the polar opposite of Chris Paul Jr. He's not undersized. He's 6'3", 233. Good speed, great against the run. He can take on blocks better than Chris Paul Jr., but on the other hand, he's not great in zone coverage, so he is going to be limited to obvious running situations. But this guy can definitely be a great contributor. He's got good sideline to sideline speed. Ran a 4.62 or 4.52 40. That's my bad. That is some phenomenal speed at linebacker. But he's decent enough in man coverage going up against tight ends where, he's going to be more athletic than most tight ends. He's got good football IQ. He's middle linebacker. He's great at the pre-snap adjustments, which you really love to see. I'm pretty high on Danny Stutzman. I think he could be a really, really valuable late mid-third round pick. Hey, Carolina Panthers, you need a linebacker. Take Danny Stutzman in the 3rd. That would be pretty sick. But Chris, who's your number 3 linebacker?
So I went with Demetrius Knight. I went with him simply because of, coming out of SEC school, 6'1". He's played a lot. He played for Georgia Tech. He played for UNC Charlotte, and then he finished up at South Carolina, and he's really versatile. 22 bench reps, not something where you really judge with bench reps, but I still think that's pretty decent. 4.58 he ran. And really just like you were saying, versatile line-to-line linebacker is really what you're looking for. in this class. And I think that he could be a steal in the mid rounds.
And Chris, I also had Demetrius Knight Jr. at number 3. The guy is super explosive. He's got a lot of special teams experience as well, so he's going to get reps there. Really good blitzer, incredibly explosive, and he's supposed to be a good leader. That's what you hear coming out of South Carolina. Some concerns are he's a little overpatient when diagnosing the run, so that allows blocks to develop and doesn't always shoot the gap like he needs to. And he is slightly limited in man coverage, so against some quicker running backs and more athletic tight ends, that could be problematic. But the guy is versatile. He's got a great frame, 245 pounds, 4.62 speed. The guy could be good. Like you said, not the best linebacker class we've ever seen, but there's a lot of solid guys who could be good contributors in like certain niches. But Chris, who is your number 2 linebacker prospect? This is where it gets good.
Yeah, because this is basically 50-50 between the top 2 here. And I went with Jared Campbell. And then that basically narrows down to my number 1 is going to be. I mean, he is one of the more explosive linebacker guys. Again, like a hybrid style. He's got the size. He's got the speed, pretty decent speed at least. Obviously, the big weaknesses that they're saying about him are he just lacks instincts, kind of the quick bang bang reaction. And he gets caught behind blocks a lot. But I think with his physical strength and just raw athleticism, he can kind of break through that. I mean, obviously, that's not a great negative attribute to have when you're going into the NFL, is not being able to get around blocks. But I think he can work around that if he gets drafted to a competent organization with a competent DC.
And Chris, we're going to end up with the same top 3. I got Jared Campbell at number 2 as well. You talked more on his weaknesses, so I just want to focus on his strength. He's a really good tackler, only 5.5% missed tackles in 2024. Hits guys hard as well, phenomenal closing speed. He's got good instincts in zone coverage, and he's lined up at middle linebacker, outside linebacker, and edge before in the SEC. So this guy's got phenomenal alignment versatility and easy first-round pick. For me, he's like top 20 to top 15. I think a team like the Bengals desperately need this kind of player. I'm not 100% sure if they have the competent DC that you mentioned, but I mean, Cincinnati just needs to get all the help they possibly can on the defensive side of the ball. That's what cost them a playoff spot this year after a MVP caliber season from Joe Burrow. But Chris, we know who's going to be at number 1 for both of us, but why don't you just elaborate on why he's at that spot?
Well, I mean, Jalen Walker's got it all, I think, when it comes to a linebacker, like I was talking about before, and we were having a general conversation about, is this kind of transition that we're seeing with linebackers where they're not like they were back in the 80s, back in the 90s, where there's these huge, scary, like Brian Urlacher looking guys. They're still scary. Don't get me wrong. I mean, everybody in the NFL is scary, but they're fast. They're athletic, they get interceptions, they get tackles for losses. And that's a big thing that Jalen Walker does, is he gets the TFL. And that's something that you don't see as much from linebackers. You're mainly used to seeing from edge rushers like TJ Watt. But I think Jalen Walker is a great hybrid talent. He's a downhill pass rusher. He's great with the rush and the pass, which is really, really big in the NFL. And I think that he would fit really well in a place like Miami, or a place like even San Francisco if he falls, or Chicago if he falls that far. He's projected around 10 to 15 now. So he could be I would say Miami would be an ideal location for him with that kind of hot and cold defense they've had the past couple of years.
And obviously, I also have Jelon Walker at number 1. This guy is super explosive, 4.5 40. That's 94th percentile for linebackers. He's got super powerful hands. He knows how to use leverage against blockers. One knock on him is he can over pursue in space when lined up as an edge rusher, and he has limited starting experience because that Georgia defense has been loaded for so long that you'll have crazy talented guys like Walker. You just have to sit behind even more insanely talented guys. I mean, Georgia keeps pumping out insane defensive players, but I think Walker Walker to San Francisco, I like that. I think he could definitely fall to them, and the 49ers are kind of in a place where they need to retool and, dare I say, almost rebuild, because that defense was just not what we had seen out of them this past season. When the 49ers have been good, they have had one of the scariest defenses in the league, and that was just not that. They got Robert Saleh back in the building. I think that is going to do absolute wonders for their defense. Saul is a great defensive coordinator. Obviously, didn't pan out as a head coach for the Jets, but this is a great match for the 49ers. Shanahan needs Saul back. Saul needs a chance to prove himself and get back to a potential head coaching position. And getting a guy like Jelon Walker would do absolute wonders for them. But Chris, we're going to move on to the secondary. This is a pretty good secondary class. Picking 5 of these guys was a little tricky. There's a lot of talent here. But who do you have as your number 5 secondary prospect?
See, this is a hard one too, because I think that it's very concentrated in the top 10 here. And I went with a guy who has a lot of physical tools. He just has one major, well, probably I'd say, dare I say, 2 major knocks, I guess. It's Siobhan Ravel at VCU. I know that he came off. He had a couple injuries, recovering from the torn ACL that he had back in September. Plus, he came from a non-Power 5 school. So, going to ECU, I think that he's got a lot what you need. I mean, he's tall for a corner. He's 6'2". He's really, really fast. He's got the IQ. And I think that's really good enough to get himself definitely drafted up there. But, the cornerback class here, I think, is kind of strong. It's obviously a lot stronger in the safety class. And we've been kind of seeing that anyway, as, just corners are the more flashy, shiny players opposed to the safeties that are kind of falling back in the stock.
And Chris, I also have Siobhan Revel Jr. at number 5. I promise we're not just copying each other's lists, y'all. This is just how it works out. Prior to his ACL injury, I think he would have been top 3 to potentially top 2. Yes, he's coming out of ECU, but just his size and physicality at cornerback is absolutely insane. His zone coverage instincts are still developing, but he's got great physicality. His recovery speed is elite. If he loses a step, he has an extra gear that he can get to gain that back, which you need to see. And like you said, phenomenal length. He's got insane athleticism. Ultimately, his draft position is going to come down to how's he recovering from his ACL injury. I think if he's fully healed, I think somewhere between 20 to 30 is probably where he's going to fall, late first round. I think this entire top 5 that we're going to be talking about, all these guys can be first round draft picks. Like I said before, it's an insane amount of talent in the secondary this draft. Chris, who do you have at number 4?
Well, I mean, I actually have a safety, interestingly enough, and that's going to be Malachi Starks. I went with Malachi Starks. I'm pretty high on him. I think he's really versatile, really a good size for a safety. And he's a great tackler, too, which is something that you need in the secondary. The athleticism that he has is really crazy. I mean, he ran the 4.5, 33 vertical jump as well. He's 6 foot even. I think they could be a late first rounder. He interestingly enough, he led the team in tackles this year, which is, again, really good considering you're on a Georgia team where you have always great defensive players. Played for quite a while and really is good with the deep ball and downhill defense too, so he could do really good toward the end of the draft. Toward the end of the first round, rather. It wouldn't surprise me if a team like even Philadelphia, Kansas City, or some team tries to jump on him if he falls that far.
And Chris, I'm starting to think that you got my notes. I also have Malachi Starks at 4. I was heavily considering putting Nick Emenwari in the top 5. He just missed it, but
okay, we won't be the same then. I'll spoil a little bit. We won't be the same.
Okay, cool. Glad we'll have a little bit of diversity in our prospect rankings, but yeah, Malachi Starks is phenomenal. I think he could go. Again, like I said, all these guys are first round picks to me. I think some people might slightly devalue the safety position, but I mean, look at a guy like Kyle Hamilton, who's just an insane player, and he dropped a little bit. He dropped further than he should have because, I mean, he was always going to be good, and he is really turning into one of the premier safeties in the NFL. But Malachi Starks is a phenomenal run defender. He processes plays in the blink of an eye, and that's what led him to leading Georgia in tackles. Like you said, he's got great change of direction, good hand usage against blockers, 4.35 speed, lightning quick. Sometimes he can get over aggressive when he's attacking against play action, and could be a little more disciplined using leverage and zone coverage. But this guy's going to be phenomenal. I think he could go as early as 17 to the Bengals because, again, Bengals need help on defense anywhere, and Malachi Starks is one of the better defensive players in the draft to me. Chris, who do you have at number 3?
And the only reason I have this guy at 3 and not at number 2 is because of his season-ending injury back in October, and give me Will Johnson out of Michigan. One of the best corners, probably the second or third best corner that we are going to have in this really, really stacked secondary draft. I mean, again, we just keep talking about size, and obviously he's got it there, 6'1", 194. I think that he's one of the more NFL-ready corners simply because of the fact that he played for Michigan. He played for a very, good Michigan team. I think that he can keep up with the passer. He reads quarterbacks very, very well. So, yeah, I mean, he's projected top 10. It wouldn't surprise me if he goes top 10. I wouldn't hate, again, like Chicago going for him, who really needs help in the secondary. That's the reason that they lost a lot of those, games in comical ways, to say the least, was, just the secondary completely falling apart. A team like New Orleans, too, going for him. New Orleans kind of needs everything. I mean, I know you're a huge Saints fan, so, the Saints draft your Michigan guy, man.
I wouldn't want to die at all if Will Johnson went to the Saints. I would love that so much. But
yeah, I mean, Will Johnson, I think, is great. So, probably, again, the only downside he has is that injury.
But yeah, on a more serious note, Will Johnson to the Saints would be a phenomenal pick. I think he'll go before that, despite the injury. I still think he's one of the best corners in this entire draft. Jason in the comments, don't mention the Saints. He's not wrong. Draft day in 4 days. We're going to have a live watch along on Boom Broadcasting starting at 7:45 Thursday night for the first round, and we're going to have a lot of guys on. We're going to roll through the whole draft. I don't know how many will stick along for the entire time, but we're going to have a bunch of different guys on. A couple special guests as well who you haven't seen on Boom before, so super excited for that. But at number 3, Chris, I have Jahdae Barron out of Texas. This guy is incredibly versatile. He's a 3-year starter, 2,400 snaps. He's got phenomenal experience, and Texas has been a solid team for the past few years. Not exceptional, but we saw them make a little bit of a college football playoff run this year. They're obviously talented, and Jahdae Barron was a big part of that. He's got great instincts in zone. He's phenomenal processor, incredibly violent tackler, but not overly violent. He knows how to control it. Special teams experience as a gunner. He can beat double teams on that. Some concerns on him are he has a slightly limited frame, so going up against big receivers could be problematic and might not be able to get off the blocks going up against bigger receivers. And sometimes his aggressive mentality can bite him a little bit. He can fall for misdirections on time, but this guy is still an absolutely phenomenal corner. He can disrupt routes in the slot. You can line him up just about anywhere. I feel like you could honestly throw him at safety as well. This guy is incredibly versatile and super excited to see where he goes. Chris, who do you have at number 2?
This is probably going to be one of my surprise ones, and you're going to call me crazy, but it's Nick Emenwari. Nick Emenwari at number 2. I know he just missed your top 5, but this guy, I mean, geez, he's 6'3", 220, and he ran a 4.38. Like, how can you not love that? Again, we're going based off of athleticism. We're going based off of empirical evidence. Obviously, this is empirical because it's, height, weight, 40 time, numbers. But he has that. And the big thing with him, too, is he's a safety. And he's built like a linebacker almost, which is really great because, going back to mentioning before, there's this versatileness. We're seeing a lot of versatile linebackers. We don't see a lot of versatile safeties simply because a lot of them are just undersized. I think that Nick Emenwari can be one of those few safeties that's built like a linebacker and can just really, really tackle well. I mean, talk about a guy that boosted his draft stock too. I mean, he his tackles went way up. His tackles for loss went up. His interceptions went way up. His deflections went way up. I think that he can be really, really good in the NFL. He has all the traits that you need. I would love to see, like, if he falls, I would actually not be opposed to the Steelers drafting him after sitting down and really looking at him. I mean, he's projected in the mid-20s right now. If he's there, I would not hate it to add another piece to that secondary.
No, that would be a phenomenal addition for Pittsburgh because we'll touch on this a little bit. I've seen some mock drafts that have them taking a quarterback in the first round. I think that would be a little questionable, especially when you have the depth of talent on the defensive side of the ball. And Pittsburgh's already got a really good defense, and it can't hurt to continue to build that up while the offense is in a retooling phase. I'd honestly call it rebuilding with Najee gone, quarterback position a little questionable, and a receiver core that could be good. Honestly, we don't know what DK Metcalf and George Pickens are going to look like. It could be good if you can get them a halfway decent quarterback to throw them the ball. But Chris, at number 2, I have Will Johnson. Yes, he's coming off of an injury, but prior to this, he was arguably the best corner in the draft. I think he honestly gives Travis Hunter a run for his money just as a cornerback. Specifically, obviously, I think we know who's going to be number 1 for both of us. Spoiler alert. But Will Johnson is just about good everywhere in coverage. He's good in press man. He's great in zone. Feels really similar to J.C. Horn, in all honesty. That's coming out of college. That's a comp that I'm comfortable making. I promise I'm not being biased. It's not because Will Johnson's at Michigan and J.C. Horn plays for the Panthers. Johnson has phenomenal size. He's got great football IQ, phenomenal instincts in zone. He is super, super competitive. He knows how to use his length in press coverage. He's got great ball skills. He shows up in big moments. He had a pick 6 against USC, an interception in the national championship in 2024, I believe it was. Great spatial awareness. Some weaknesses, he can get a little grabby downfield when he gets beaten. He has to just trust his recovery speed and not put himself in a position where he's going to get a flag. And he could refine his press technique a little bit more. He relies slightly more on his athleticism as opposed to just using his hands. And he's got solid athleticism, but it's not exceptional. And it looks like we have lost Chris. Hopefully he will be back momentarily, but our next segment is going to be risers and fallers. There's Chris. Lost him for a second, but he's back.
Sorry about that, internet.
You are all good, man.
So yeah, or did you finish your number 1?
I did not. I was going to jump to risers and fallers until you got back, but Chris, we touched on it briefly. But we think we know who's going to be at number 1 for both of us, but who do you have at number 1 for second?
Yeah, it's not much else can be said. I mean, it's going to be Travis Hunter. I mean, he's one of the more athletic. In my opinion, he has the opportunity to be the most athletic person in the NFL since a guy like Deion Sanders. I mean, since his former coach at Colorado. Travis Hunter really has everything that you need. The only real knock on him is how he's kind of undersized at 6'1", 185, but for a corner, I think he'll be fine. That's really his only knock. He can play good at both. I personally would rather see him at wide receiver. I really think that an NFL team should choose one position for him and just be like, all right, this is what we're going to focus on. Because again, it's not like he's Shohei Ohtani. It's not like it's baseball. Travis Hunter by a mile is probably by a mile is the most athletic person in this draft. But unfortunately, I think if he gets drafted by an incompetent team, which most teams in the top 5 are incompetent, they're going to try and put him on both sides of the ball, stretch him too thin. But I say he could be elite at either one, and just pick which one he's most comfortable with in the NFL.
Without a doubt. And I also have Travis Hunter at number 1. He's good really just about everywhere. He's good in man, good in zone, great processing. Again, like you said, he's a little undersized at cornerback, but I mean, at wide receiver, I wouldn't really call him undersized for that. Some issues for him are he's a willing tackler, but he can get taken out of the play by some bigger receivers when he has to deal with blocks, and he can be a little stiff when matched up against some more speedy slot receivers. But I mean, what else needs to be said? The guy won the Heisman last year. He's a phenomenal player. But yeah, I don't think much more else needs to be said about Travis Hunter. Moving on, we're going to be talking some risers and fallers for this NFL draft. We're going to give you 3 guys who could rise or fall based on where we've seen them mocked. But Chris, who's your first riser or faller that you want to talk about?
So the first riser I have is a guy that I'm big on, an offensive lineman that I think can be really, really good. Coming out of North Dakota State, give me Gray Zabel. He started, we were first starting to do these mocks. He was sitting down, 3rd round. Now he's projected as high as a first rounder. 6'5", 312. He's a versatile offensive lineman, and he's a great run blocker and a great pass blocker. And the big thing is a lot of team needs are centers. That's the thing. This guy, I think, can easily play center in the NFL at an elite level. And that's something that a lot of teams need. You have a lot of legendary centers that have retired recently. And in my opinion, center is one of the hardest positions to play on the football field. So yeah, give me Gray Zabel as one of my risers.
And Chris, I love that shout. For my 3, I only have 1 riser. I'm going to talk about him first. It's Jack Bech, wide receiver out of TCU. Going into the draft process, I think he was originally projected as like a day 3 pick. The guy had an absolutely phenomenal Senior Bowl. He was Senior Bowl MVP. The guy knows how to get open. He doesn't have exceptional size. He's not incredibly athletic, but he's a great route runner, and he can get himself open. I think that's incredibly important. To me, he's a early 3rd round pick, could potentially sneak into the late 2nd round, because I think a lot of people become enamored with receivers who have great physical traits. While Jack Bech doesn't have that, he makes up for it in his route running acumen and his ability to get open. And that is, to me, that is more important at wide receiver than having phenomenal physical traits. But Chris, who's another riser or faller?
This is another one that I just kind of bounced around with, but I have a fall here, and that's going to be James Pierce. I've really seen him fall, and I know a lot of that has to do with some of the behavioral stuff and the work ethic stuff. Despite the fact he's 6'5", 245, and he has a lot of athleticism, but I've seen him fall pretty heavily because now he's down projected in the 2nd round. And I think especially at, kind of a weird edge rushing class, he would have initially been top 15 or so, but now I've seen him as low as the low 2nd. So I'll go with James Pierce there out of Tennessee. Kind of a weird situation there, but it's kind of one of those 50-50 ones. Like I didn't actually know where to include Mike Green in here because I wanted to put him on the rise, but also I know, again, behavioral, he got kicked out of Virginia, and that's why he's at Marshall. So that's why it's like he's like a guy who could go anywhere. So let's say 50-50 between James Pierce and Mike Green for this one.
Look, a sneaky pick at 8 for the Panthers for me is Mike Green, because I'm incredibly high on Mike Green.
Yeah, I think it could be rise or fall. It's 50-50 with Green.
I don't blame you. And James Pierce Jr., he's definitely going to drop, but he's just an insane pass rusher, and it feels like he's going to be an Eagles pick, and it's going to be another situation where one of these elite SEC defenders has some issue that causes him to fall to Howie Roseman and the Eagles, and that Eagles defense is just going to keep getting stronger and stronger. But Pierce Jr. falling to the second round would be insane because he is a top 15 talent if you ignore the character concerns. It's really hard to ignore those, though. I have a faller, Kenneth Grant out of Michigan. I still really, really like him as a player, but he didn't have a great pro day. He didn't run, and all his testing was just like really average for his position. He was still really, really good at Michigan, good against the run, better pass rusher than his teammate Mason Graham. I still think he's going to be incredibly valuable, but I saw some mocks that had him middle of the first. I think he's dropping to late first, like bottom 5 picks, potentially top of the second round. I still think he's going to be a good player, but he's definitely dropped a little bit on account of his shaky pro day performance. But Chris, who is your last riser or faller that you want to talk about?
I go Marion Hampton as my last riser. I mean, this was a guy that, was one of the best UNC running backs of all time, and nobody was talking about him up until a few weeks ago. I feel like, I know that you've been really big on him. I know that Jason was really big on him. So was Shannon. We talked about him before in the last few Gridiron addresses, but I mean, there's a lot to like with him. He's, there's a lot to like with him. He was initially projected way, way down. Now he's worked his way up. I mean, 3,164 yards, 30 touchdowns over 2 seasons. I think that's really impressive. He's a hard, heavy, or a top heavy running back, hard, heavy running back for his size, only 5'11". And he ran a pretty solid 40 as well, 4.46. So, I think Marion Hampton is one that not a lot of people are talking about, and more people will be talking about because he's been overshadowed by, one of the best, if not the best college running back ever, and Ashton Genty in front of him.
And without a doubt, Hampton's thrown himself into first round consideration. I think he's going to go to a team like the Broncos. I think would be a phenomenal fit for him. He would do absolute numbers there. He's also versatile as a wide receiver. But Chris, the last player I want to talk about, we mentioned there's some mocks that have your Pittsburgh Steelers taking a quarterback. One of those quarterbacks is Jackson Dart out of Ole Miss. This feels like a situation where we're just trying to force a player into the first round because they're a quarterback that's not necessarily built like a first-round quarterback. I feel like we could see a Malik Willis type fall from Jackson Dart, where Willis was consistently mocked in the first round, fell all the way to the third round. I don't think Dart will necessarily fall that far. I don't think there's a chance. I mean, there's obviously a little bit of a chance that he goes to a team like Pittsburgh or another quarterback needy team in the late first round. I think that would be a terrible pick. I think as a day 2 pick, Dart has a lot of value, but with how much talent there is at other positions in this class, forcing yourself to take a quarterback in the late first round is just a disservice, especially for Pittsburgh when there's going to be a lot of talent like Nick Emenwari, like you mentioned. Malachi Starks could drop as well. And some of the linebackers we mentioned, like Jod Campbell, is potentially available there for Pittsburgh. Chris, how would you feel if Pittsburgh went for a Jackson Dart or a Jalen Milroe at 21?
I would be pretty angry. I mean, it wouldn't surprise me, but again, it's not really a Steelers type of thing to do, but who knows, knowing what the direction of the organization, I would be pretty annoyed for all the reasons that you said, is that this is not a good quarterback. And there is no way that there's no universe should you be forcing a quarterback in the first round when it's not the top 2 quarterbacks. And even the top 2 quarterbacks are questionable about their future in the NFL. So with all the talent, I think it would be a tremendous waste of a pick, but I'm just hoping that the Steelers don't do it because that would not be very characteristic for the Steelers to do.
It would not be. And something that I also want to talk about before we head off for the day is Travis Hunter said that he will not play football if a team doesn't let him play both sides of the ball. And Chris, you had mentioned that you would prefer him as a wide receiver, but one of the more desperate teams in that top 5 is likely to let him play both sides of the ball. Cleveland being one of them. I think they're the most likely to let him do both. But Chris, what do you think about Hunter saying that? And do you think it's realistic that a team will let him play significant snaps at each position?
I mean, he's his own man, and he can. I think that it would be an interesting thing to try. I don't know if it would necessarily work simply because, again, unlike baseball, where you're having one guy go and play the entire, if he's pitching, then he gets 5 days rest from pitching. You have the whole game. In football, you're playing both sides of the ball, so you're back and forth. And that fatigue, I think, once he's at the NFL level playing both sides of the ball, and that fatigue actually hits him of trying to guard some of the best receivers, like when you're guarding a guy like Puka, or you're guarding a guy like Jamar Chase, and then you're having to turn around and face off against some of the best corners in the league, best linebackers in the league. I think that fatigue will finally get to him, and he'll probably want to pick one position. But who knows? He could be elite at both. I could be totally wrong.
Without a doubt. And I think another thing that's going to make it really hard is learning both playbooks. Like, it's already hard enough to just get one down. And I think Travis Hunter is a smart guy. I think he could potentially do it, but we're not going to see him be like a full-time starter at both. I think a really realistic situation is primarily cornerback and use him like 10 to 12 snaps at wide receiver. I think that's a very realistic scenario that gets him playing both positions, and he only has to learn like a set amount of plays at wide receiver. But I would like to see him get snaps at both sides of the ball because it's a really cool story. We may never see this again in our lifetimes, Chris. And I hope he doesn't go to Cleveland because they're not in a good spot. They will let him play both sides of the ball, but I think the Giants might be a better place for him to go. Those are the two most likely spots for him, because Tennessee, I think Cam Ward is like solidly the first pick in the draft, and Cleveland needs help everywhere. Travis Hunter would give them help on both sides of the ball. But that'll do it for this morning episode of the Gridiron Address. Chris, thank you for coming on this morning, and thank you all for watching, and hope everybody has a happy Easter and a good rest of